everyone, and welcome back to more of our coverage from the 2022 Montana Grain Growers Association Convention. We are also featuring here at this year's event our friends at the Northern Pulse Growers Association and P&W Canola Association as well. And we have been talking with producers and industry leaders throughout this week, and a dear friend of the industry and of us here at the Western Ag Network, Mr. Gary Broyles, joins us here today. And Gary, you have worked your way through the policy side of leadership with the Montana grain growers. You're also on the foundation side of things. What's it like coming up here to Great Falls? I always say when there's a convention, usually this time of the year, we also bring in the negative degree weather. What's it like up here in Great Falls this week?
Well, it might be cold outside, but I think it's pretty warm here at the convention. You know, I think to answer your question, as far as my involvement is concerned, it started out in '86. I came up here just almost on a lark. No one invited me. I just had heard about Montana grain growers, and I came up here in the fall of '86. And I think I have hit every convention since. The first reason I kept coming back was because every time I came up here, I felt like I went home with something that I had in my toolbox that I learned here, that I couldn't get sitting around a coffee shop or an elevator. It was good training. So it became sort of my mantra. I would say, this is my annual training. People go to training all the time. This was my annual training. It was the one time a year I was going to get away. Now, after you continue to show up for enough years, pretty soon somebody will ask you to do something, and eventually I served on the board, and as you and most people know, I eventually became a president for Montana Grain Growers in 1998. And then that led to me being asked and elected as national president in 2002. None of that was like it was an agenda of mine that something I wanted to accomplish in life. But I was asked, and you had to do a little soul searching every inch of the way, and decided that what a great honor to be asked to be the voice of and serve an industry and the people that make it up that I love. It's what I'm part of, agriculture in Montana. And so obviously I have learned way more than I ever gave. I've gained more than I ever gave along the way. So I'm on the backside of that really busy time in the 90s and early 2000s, but I continue to come up here because I learned something. And I want to continue to be a part of, not the immediate voice all the time, like in whether it's Helena or Washington, D.C., about the issues in Montana, but I am a participant in helping to establish that policy that Montana, that voice, that message that Montana Grain Growers carries through the resolution process. So I learn and I get to be a part of. And I think that Montana Grain Growers has continued to bring forth well thought out solutions to many of the problems in agriculture, and especially here in Montana. So I'm just honored to be a part of it, and I would encourage every producer in Montana, especially on the grain side, you know, the grains, which includes pulses, to come and be a part of this, learn how the process is carried out, and learn how their presence and their concerns and their voice can really be heard, not just here, but in places that matter. Because let's be honest, whether it be Helena or Washington, D.C., there are a lot of people making decisions on behalf of agriculture that don't understand. That's our role, is trying to help them understand the truth about issues. Whether they vote always in the way we would like it or in our favor, that doesn't always happen, but at least they're informed. And that's our role, is to inform people that don't understand the truth about agriculture.
And with that, Gary, I do want to learn more about, obviously, your family operation as well, but I do need to quickly thank, again, our friends at Nutrien Ag Solutions for sponsoring all these conversations we're having here at the Grain Growers Convention. So just want to give a shout out to Nutrien Ag Solutions. Visit them online and follow them on social media as well. But Gary, when you look at this, obviously, you come, you learn, you advocate, you educate. but you also have to go home and farm as well. Let's just talk about your family operation and how many generations have been on that property, and let's just talk about your history on the land.
Okay. Well, I'm first generation. My parents farmed when I was very, very little in Missouri. And they left there, moved to Montana in 1953, so I was only 3 years old. But the atmosphere in our home was ag. Fast forward quite a ways, I graduated from high school in Billings. I went to school in Bozeman, Montana State University, go Cats.
Go Cats.
And finished with a degree in engineering. But my passion from a little boy was agriculture. And I went to work as a hired man and thought if I worked long and hard and with enough integrity, that maybe someday I would have a chance to do it on my own. That process of being a hired man and then eventually leasing a place took me to where we live now in 1978. I was 28 years old.
And is that in Rapplejay?
It's at Rapplejay.
Yep.
And I worked there as a hired man and then eventually a farm manager and then eventually I leased it. And fast forward another 30 years, and we had an opportunity to buy that. So my son Paul and his wife, that's not just the two of us, we kind of joined forces. He had worked with Dad, and basically we've formed a partnership and a corporation together, and so we farmed together. So that's home, been our home for a long time, raised our family there. Paul's raising his family there. And our focus, even though have cattle or grassland now, we've sold our cattle. We're primarily farming. But just the way we look at it is we're just honored to be given the privilege of being stewards of a little bit of the Lord's creation. You know, we're blessed.
Now, Gary, you talked about all the work, obviously working as a hired hand and obviously leasing and whatnot. Talk about the challenges in trying to buy land and equipment, especially when you're first generation. Talk about those challenges, but also share some of the advice you have for young producers out there that do want to get a start or maybe expand off on their own.
Well, I think that perseverance is the right word. I told you, I was a hired man or worked through this for over 30 years. And I don't know if this day and age, people want things to happen fast. Like I want it now or in a very near future. And sometimes things don't happen in that near future. And I had to make a decision. Is owning something going to make me happy, or is being able to live here and be a part of this industry going to make me happy and be thankful for what I have? And really, I had gotten to that point. And then as it just turned out, being there for a long time, you gradually build to the point where we were extended, I thought, a very unforeseen but very thoughtful opportunity from one of our landlords. And that gave us our start. So we're very thankful for that. But my encouragement to people that are interested in agriculture is to know that if that's the calling they feel, they want to be a part of that, go ahead and go for it. But understand where your passion is. Is your passion in ownership, or is your passion in participation, in being a part of? And honestly, then people think that, well, if I really want to be a part of agriculture, I have to be a part of the production side. Yes, I know that it's kind of the glorious way, but honestly, even if you are a representative of a herbicide company or a fertilizer company or something where you are participating in the stewardship and the production off that land, you are a part of agriculture, very much so. Even if you're writing the crop insurance. But if you want, like in our case, to be a part of it, just stick with it. And always remember that I think your best reputation comes from your word and your hard work, your dedication to serve. And good things will come your way. There was a great speaker last night that I wish everyone in Montana could have heard, that really, I think, pointed out the things that really matter in life. It's not what you have, it's what you give.
And when we look at the opportunity that you have had, and your wife Sue and your entire family, and putting forward volunteerism, those hours of traveling and leadership roles, and the time you've donated, especially for the foundation on the side of things for the state of Montana and the National Wheat Foundation, why is it so important to take that time away from, it's hard to get away from the farm. But why is it so important to step up, as you're saying, giving back to an organization for those future generation of farmers that maybe haven't even been born yet?
I think one of the worst assumptions that we can make in any industry, but specifically this is agriculture, is to think that somebody else is always going to know what to say on your behalf. I mean, I think our question is always, is if we don't want to be a part of the voice of agriculture, then which movie star do you think is going to, they're always looking for limelight, which movie star do you know of that you think is going to go out and represent your industry or your point of view? You must be active. Now, sometimes that is, well, I'm a member, and that is great, and that's good. But I think if, for anyone that's willing to show up more often, go to meetings, learn, be a part of, from my standpoint, I know it took a lot of time, and my family was willing to sacrifice my presence a little bit. I didn't want to abuse that privilege that they offered me, but I always felt that I brought more back to the farm. Sometimes it's just understanding there's a bigger picture to this. It's easy to get tunnel vision on the farm, or the ranch even, and kind of think your world ends at the mailbox at the end of the lane, and you get to thinking like, this is all that's important. But there's a lot more to it. And a lot of this time that I spent, I realized that solutions weren't quite as simple as I thought they were at home. I could come up with like, well, why don't they just do that? And you get out there and you realize, oh yeah, but there's a little bit more to the problem or a little bit more to the solution. And I think that just, if nothing else, it just made me think bigger picture. And so I think that helped our business at home. And in the end, I think it helped us create or be a part of an opportunity for our family. But not everybody, it's not cut out for everyone to want to step up and be a part of the voice. And for that matter, even sit here in an interview with someone like yourselves. But I care about the people that make up our industry, and I care about the little communities, and I think it's important along the way that our concerns, what it's like out here on the farm, need to be represented to people that don't understand. And so I've just been, it's kind of been a little bit of a driver for me. I'm past now. I was part of the policy for many, many years, and didn't quite burn myself out, but I was busy, really busy. So I've really taken a step back, and that's fine, because always remember one thing: somebody got out of the way that gave Gary an opportunity to first come on board and be a part of the board of directors and eventually an officer and so forth. So I always think it's good for us to not hang around, step back, let other people, let other generally younger than you producers come on and have an opportunity. I've been blessed, and why shouldn't they be blessed by that opportunity?
So what were some of those challenges in the early 90s and early 2000s for the younger producers that are tuned into this, that they were probably in diapers, or maybe they might not even been born yet? What were some of those challenges that you faced in leadership and as a producer, and how that helped strengthen the industry here in the state and across the nation?
Well, I can tell you in the late 90s here in Montana and even in western Kansas, the late 90s, early 2000s, there was some pretty serious drought going on then, too. The last 2 years in Montana is not the first time Montana's suffered a drought. And drought isn't universal. It's not that we have a water shortage problem, we just have a distribution problem. And so there's areas that are always experiencing some sort of a calamity, if you will. And so at that point in time, I was a very credible voice of what it was like to live through that to people that didn't understand. I remember testifying in Congress in Washington, D.C. several times on when we were looking for disaster legislation, just what it is like to have your world turned upside down for something you had nothing to do with or any control over. And again, it wasn't that you're always running around Washington asking for a handout, but you are asking them to understand that it's painful out there. And if you could do that in a way that they understood what it was like, whether you lived in Kansas or this year Nebraska has had it just as bad as Montana. They just need to know. But it's easy to grow up in New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles and not have a clue what's going on out here. So I just encourage people to become a credible, active voice for our industry.
And Gary, you talk about those issues and challenges, and I think of that beautiful building on Montana State University's campus across the street from Linfield Hall there, where the dean's office is at, the plant sciences building, and the endowed chair that so many producers like yourself and Dale Schuler and so many that we can't even name right now that have worked to create a strong future for the crop and new varieties. Well, let's talk about your work with the wheat foundations on the state level and the national level, and why it's important to make those investments into these nonprofits to help secure a future for producers like your son Paul and all the other future generations here in the state.
It was about 2013 or 14, and I had stepped away for a few years after being very, very busy with National Wheat Growers. Didn't mean I walked completely away. I still served on the Dean's Advisory Council, or the Development Committee for the College of Ag. But I stepped away, and then we came back up here, and it was just about that time that some of the past presidents of Montana grain growers and some of the other, past leaders had decided to kind of resurrect, if you will, the Montana Grains Foundation. It had been in existence for a long time, but very inactive. And as that came about, it was about the time that the license plate, the world's finest grain license plate came on board, and that turned out that as a foundation, that was our license plate. But we decided that we needed to have a mission. How can we not just gather once in a while, but what can we do? And one of the ongoing issues in Montana has been the sawfly issue. Not that it's the only one, it was just one of those that had been ongoing. And we thought maybe the best way to approach that is to consider, is a big task. And we sort of were challenged by what Ed Cruzado, like the industry was, and we accepted the challenge and went out and spearheaded a fairly sizable fundraising campaign to put enough money in the foundation, but designated to create an endowed chair position in plant science. And that process took several years. We knew it wasn't going to happen in a minute. We talked about perseverance a while ago with farming and getting opportunities. Well, this was a labor or effort that required some perseverance and dedication, and the timing was right, and we were successful. I don't claim the success. I think Montana was successful in getting participants enough. Most of it from producers, or at least half of that. It was $5 million. And the process took a little while, and then COVID kind of created a little hiccup in that. But we finally have a man, his name is Venu Mendu, that was hired just over a year ago to fill that position. And I can tell you, I'm excited. We've met with him several times. He's going to speak here this afternoon. He's originally from India, but he has the same passion in his heart for agriculture that Gary has in my heart, to make a difference and to do things that help the producers in Montana. And I think that is the best we can ask for. But he's just a very nice man, and I'm excited for what lies out ahead. I think we're going to begin, it takes a while. He's only been here for 9 months, or I guess more like 10. But things will happen because he's a geneticist. He's going to work on what he can do and help create to make all the plant breeding at Montana State University be enhanced, if you will, and have enhanced traits, address issues, whether it be sawfly or fertilizer uptake, acidity in soils, whatever it might be. And we just think that that really brought another, if you will, kind of an old adage, but another tool in our toolbox. He brings something to our industry, and I think it's something that we should all be very excited about and look forward to what comes in the future.
You know, one thing we always talk about on our programming each year is the wheat yield contest that the National Wheat Foundation conducts, because it's just so impressive to see the output on some of these acreages and how many bushels they can produce. And that research that MSU is doing could help lead to greater bushels here in the state of Montana. But let's talk about the Wheat Foundation and why we need more producers participating here in Montana in the wheat yield contest.
Certainly. Well, you're bridged right into another something that I'm involved in, and I not only serve on the Montana Grains Foundation, but I was asked almost 3 years ago. They'd like to recycle some of us old guys, and they asked if Montana asked if I would accept a nomination to run for a board position with the National Wheat Foundation. We had that foundation when I was national president, but I served on it from a kind of an ex officio, if you will, being an officer with National Wheat Growers, but I hadn't served on it as a board member per se. And so the function of, one of the primary functions of the National Wheat Foundation is that we conduct or sponsor leadership programs for a lot of individuals within the wheat industry. Everything from understanding the bigger picture of lobbying and how to communicate well, to then we also have some receptions in Washington, D.C., and a few farm tours that we invite congressional members, senators or congressmen, or their staff out to farms, or we have what we call Wheat 101, which is not policy driven, because we can't, as a foundation, we can't influence government policy. It doesn't fit the definition of a foundation. But we can try to educate them, again, on just what it's like out here. And a lot of people don't even know what it feels like to stick your hand in a bucket of wheat, if you will, something that simple. So that's another part of it. A third function of the National Wheat Foundation, we sponsor the National Wheat Yield Contest. And I certainly would encourage many people to be a part of that here in Montana. It's not just putting you against for the highest yield in southwest Idaho, where they have really good yields, or out in the Palouse. It is more relative to your area and your county, and how did you do relative to others. And the point of that isn't necessarily to put you against your neighbor, but it's to challenge you. What can we do to push these yields? It's not on your whole farm, it's like 5 acres. And what we're finding, what we're also doing with that, it isn't just about yield, it's about yield and quality. We added a quality component a couple years ago. In fact, I have a Zoom meeting, if you will, in a week, because we just got the tests finished from last year. So it was last summer was the first summer that we added that quality component. The idea isn't just to produce more of it, it's to produce better quality. And out of that, we'll see how that study, along with some other research, can show us how to raise high quality, high yielding, high profit wheat. And so we're pretty excited about that.
And it also drives your neighbor to want to improve.
It does, but I think if you show your neighbor, if you will, that the proper fertility and the proper disease management and herbicide management, if you do that properly, it doesn't cost you, it actually nets you a product that's more valuable. And you eventually, it'll in the end, it actually puts more money in your pocket. So it's not all about who can spend the most. It's creating profitability. and understand full well that down where I live in Rapelje, you can't raise crops like you can in parts of Kansas or Virginia or the Palouse. But the principle remains the same. So that is a big part of it. Winter wheat, we're asking people to really consider that. It's not very expensive to sign up. You can go on to the National Wheat Foundation website and find out how to get registered and signed up for that. And I think that is in the first part of May for wheat, and then it's in June for spring wheat. Winter wheat in May, spring wheat in June. I right off the top of my head, I can't remember what the date is. But if anybody was interested, contact the grain grower office here in Great Falls, and they'll put you in touch with me, and I will steer you the right direction. It's meant to be fun. It really is meant to be fun, but educational at the same time. So those are some big things. A couple more things we're doing. We're working on as a foundation at the national level on the basically the life cycle of wheat, and it's interesting. Well, why would you want to study that? It's because I think other crops have done it, and Congress is wanting to know what is the real footprint of wheat in as far as carbon sequestration, the energy and the not really the pollution, but what input goes into it. What is its overall effect environmentally? And regardless of where you might stand on that whole subject personally, it's here. It's a concern of the populace, and so we're wanting to find that. We think that it will help us. It will help not us as a foundation, but it will help National Wheat Growers as a policy group, as our voice in Washington, and it'll help our representation in Congress, our legislators, weigh wheat fairly. And I think most of the industry is very excited about that. So that process is honestly just getting started, and that life cycle assessment is going to be done primarily at Texas A&M.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and we do have our fireside. It truly is a fireside chat here, Gary.
It
You
is.
weren't expecting that this morning when you woke up.
No, I should have brought marshmallows.
Yeah, we could have made some s'mores.
Yeah,
here,
we
too.
could have. Yep.
But Gary, I'll let you get back to the convention. But just any last thoughts you'd just like to share with our viewers and listeners here today about what your thoughts are about the future, and hopefully we can get a little more precipitation in 2023. But any last thoughts?
Well, for one, always hang in there. That's what I've done, and I encourage other people. It's just a good industry to be a part of. Be happy about it. You can always find, even in a dry year, you can find things to be thankful for. And so maintain that positive attitude. It wasn't that fabulous at home this year either, but I tell everybody, well, it kept me on my knees, and that wasn't all bad. But just continue. But I think the real thankfulness that we can have as an industry here in Montana, I think here in Montana, it's fabulous. How far do you go, Lane? Up and down the street, and you just don't you recognize people from all over the state. The community of agriculture is not that big in Montana. It's just one city with long streets,
Yep.
really long streets, and so enjoy that and be thankful for that. Every year is going to be better than last year, right? We're eternal optimists, but we do it because we love it. So thanks, appreciate the time.
Thank you again to Mr. Gary Broyles from down by Rapelje, Montana, and thanking him for his years of service to the Montana's grain industry and on the national level as well. And we'd also like to thank our friends at Nutrien Ag Solutions for all they're doing for us and helping you bring all of our coverage and conversations from this year's Montana Grain Growers Convention.